Chapter 10 of Karnaparva, The King, a picture of O. Radeya was dead. There was nothing left on the earth after the death of Radeya. All that was beautiful and noble died with Radeya. It was the afternoon of the 17th day of the Great War. But looking at the fallen form of Radeya, everyone was sure that the sun had left the sky and descended to the earth to make it beautiful. The field looked beautiful because of the noble head of Radeya, which was lying on the ground like a broken lotus blossom. There was a sudden darkness in the sky for a few moments. The sun, sunk in sorrow, stopped glowing in the sky for a few moments. He came out again, but his rays were weak, as at the end of the day. Radeya was glowing like molten gold. His broad chest which had been hurt by the arrows of Arjuna, looked wonderful to those who stood and looked at him. His lotus eyes were closed. His body was covered with the dust of the battlefield. The sun looked on him and he was stricken with despair. Slowly and very unwillingly, he illuminated the battlefield. It was midday, but the sun's rays were as soft as moon beams. So great was his sorrow at the death of his unfortunate son. Shalya drove the chariot without its banner and without its owner to the camp. He found that the dreadful chariot had come out of the mire of its own accord. It looked as though nothing had happened to it. Shalya was not able to see because of the tears that welled up in his eyes. His ears were deafened by the roars in the Pandava army. He could not bear to hear the sound of conches and trumpets, which were blaring forth the victory of the Pandavas. Shalya hurried to the presence of Duryodhana. The king was a picture of O. His heart just broke when he saw the fall of the greatest of all men. He did not dream that Radeya, his dear Radeya, would die that day. He remembered that night before when Radeya came to him again from the doorway of the tent and embraced him. He wept hot tears that scorched him like drops of liquid fire. Radeya was dead and he was alive. He had not grasped the full truth. Slowly he realized that he was alive in a world which had no place for Radeya. His Radeya was dead. Dead. He beat his hands in futile fury. He was speechless with woe. Shalya found him thus, with his eyes raining tears and his words coming out in gasps. He could not stand up. His knees gave way under him. Seeing Shalya, his grief broke out anew. He saw the chariot of Radeya and the empty seat. He saw the bow and quiver of Radeya. Duryodhana broke down completely. Shalya comforted him. His heart was heavy when he spoke to Duryodhana. He said, "My child, do not break your heart. These things are all in the hands of fate. Having seen how Radeya fought, I can only blame fate for killing him. There was never a duel like the one fought today. Radeya was more than a match for Krishna and Arjuna. But fate was too powerful. It was fate which killed Radeya. Arjuna was just the instrument. There is no use in trying to stop the course of destiny." Shalya spoke in glowing terms of the valor of Radeya. He said, "He has now reached the heavens. Do not grieve for Radeya. He is happy now. Recall the army. It is not in a condition to fight. They have all become numb with the shock of the fall of Radeya. Even the sun shines but dimly today, though it is not evening yet. Stop the war for the day." Duryodhana left it all to the others and sat sunk in awe. Ashwatthama and the others came to Duryodhana and tried to pacify him, but nothing could soothe the wounded heart of Duryodhana. He sat where he was all through the terrible night. Radeya was alone on the battlefield. He was dead, but beauty had not left his noble face. His body was glowing as though there was still life in it. People were still afraid to approach him. He looked as though he were just resting. The magnificent figure of Radeya was lifeless. The fire in him had been quenched. Radeya had been on the field for just 7 days. Within these 7 days, he had achieved so much. This noble man, who had never refused anyone anything, was now dead. He had given away all he had. He was the favorite of the king. Depending on Radeya, Duryodhana had begun the war, and Radeya was dead. The rivers stopped flowing when Radeya died. The sun lost his glory when Radeya died. The earth quaked in fear and the sky was red with agony. The planets were all displaced because of this great calamity. Comets were seen even during the day. There was a cry of pain even from the gods who had assembled in the sky, pain from those who were immune to pain. Such a great fall was the fall of Radeya. Arjuna blew his Devadatta and Krishna his Panchajanya. It was evident that they did not blow it as lustily as they usually did. Krishna did not. Yudhishthira had gone back to his tent during the middle of the duel since he could not stay for long. He was still suffering from pain from his wounds. The two friends hurried towards the tent of Yudhishthira. Arjuna jumped out of his chariot and ran to his brother. Yudhishthira was waiting for him eagerly. He had already heard about the death of Radeya. Arjuna fell at his feet. The beloved feet of his honored guru and brother Yudhishthira lifted him up and embraced him. He embraced Krishna, who stood by. All the heroes were waiting to congratulate Arjuna on this, his greatest achievement. Arjuna was very happy. Krishna said, Yudhishthira, today is a happy day for you. With the death of Radeya, the hope of Duryodhana is dead. Your anger, which was born 14 years ago, is now burning bright and it is burning up the Kauravas. You are already the Lord of the world. Yudhishthira said, You are our hope, Krishna. You have done this for me. You are here to protect us, the Pandavas. Where is the need for worry? Yudhishthira was today rid of the worry which had been robbing him of his sleep. He was so happy that Radeya was dead. He wanted to see him dead. He called for Arjuna's chariot and, followed by his friends, proceeded to the battlefield to see the dead form of Radeya with his own eyes. He saw the three sons of Radeya lying on the field. He saw Radeya sleeping peacefully after the fitful fever called life. Yudhishthira looked for long at the beautiful form of Radeya and returned to his tent. He heaved a sigh of relief. He spoke nothing for a long time. The sun sloped gratefully towards the western hill. It was a day fraught with the greatest misfortune for him. It was the day when his beloved son had been killed in the battle. The sun was grateful for the few hours of respite. He needed all his strength to appear again in the east next morning to usher in another day of pain. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 11 of Karnaparva. With his grandfather. Duryodhana did not want to think of anything. He thought of the day of the tournament. That was when he first saw Radeya. He wanted to see him now. In the dead of the night, when the entire camp was sleeping, Duryodhana hurried to the battlefield. He saw Radeya. He sat by the side of his friend who had loved him so much. He had died for him. He just sat there looking at the handsome face of Radeya. He thought he would go mad. He rushed from there. He ran across the entire field. He ran to his grandfather who was waiting for his death. He fell at the feet of the old man and sobbed as if his heart would break. Bhishma placed his old, tired hands on the head of this unfortunate grandson of his. He said, My child, the death of Radeya had to happen. You must not grieve so much for his death. He is happy now. He was a Kshatriya and he died as a Kshatriya should. Duryodhana was startled. He said, So, I am right. Radeya was a Kshatriya. Grandfather, I have all along felt that Radeya was a Kshatriya. Now, you are saying the same thing. Tell me who he was. I am eager to know it. I will remove the stigma from his name at least now. I will do at least this for my friend who died for me. Tell me, grandfather. Bhishma said, I know who he is, but I cannot tell you unless you promise me that you will not tell anyone about it. It was the wish of Radeya that no one should know about it. He made me promise that I would not tell you about him until he died. Now that Radeya is dead, I can tell you, but you must keep it a secret until you die. Duryodhana was puzzled. He said, if my beloved Radeya desired it to be a secret, I will certainly respect his wishes. I will not tell anyone about it. Tell me. Bhishma pondered for a moment. He said, Duryodhana, you are already suffering from a shock. Can you bear to hear this? Duryodhana smiled a bitter smile. He said, after seeing the dead form of my Radeya, I am still alive. Does it not prove that my heart is made of stone? I can bear anything now. Tell me, grandfather, tell me, who is Radheya? Bhishma paused for a moment. He said, I will tell you. Strengthen yourself to hear the truth. Your friend was not Radheya. He was Kaunteya. Like the shock of sudden pain, the truth hit Duryodhana in the face. He reeled under the shock. He held on to the hands of his grandfather and said, what? Kaunteya? Are the Pandavas the brothers of Radeya? Tell me everything, grandfather. Bhishma told him all the painful details of the life of Radeya. He told him about the coming of the sun to Kunti and about the box of wood. He told him about Athiratha finding the box and about the name Radeya. How he decided on that name to be his for life. Bhishma told Duryodhana how Radeya realized that he was not the son of Athiratha. His heart broke when Drona refused to take him as his pupil as he was a Sutaputra. Then the painful episode in the ashrama of Bhargava. Then about the tournament when his love for Duryodhana was born. Bhishma told his grandson how the two loves were the only things that mattered to Radeya. Love for Radha, his mother, and love for Duryodhana. He told him about the Kavacha and Kundalas being given away by Radeya because he loved a good name more than his life. Duryodhana was then told about the visits of Krishna and Kunti. He heard all about the infinite love Radeya had for him. Bhishma told him everything. Duryodhana sat silent. His tears were drenching the hand of his grandfather, which he was holding in his two hands. Then he spoke in a voice choked with pain. Radeya knew, and yet he would not go to them because he loved me so. God, why am I not dead? Why does the earth stay without swallowing me up? Radeya, my friend, I will come to you soon as I can. I cannot live without you. Bhishma tried to talk to this child who was now distraught with grief. Duryodhana braced himself up and said, now nothing can hurt me. My mind is cleansed of all sin when I have heard about the noblest man that ever lived. I can meet death with a smile on my lips. I have learnt it from him. I am free of the love for the kingdom. I want to share it with Radeya. I am now past all caring. I want one thing, death. I will die as a Kshatriya should. You will be proud of me, grandfather. I must go now and make preparations for my death. Duryodhana walked away without turning back. Iti Karnaparva Samaptaha. Shri Krishnarpanamastu.